of all in the soft primrose, wrung by the wind, but stealing back and smiling when the wrath was past. In all of these, and many others, there was aching ecstasy, delicious pang of Lorna. But however cold the weather was, and however hard the wind blew, one thing, more than all the rest, worried and perplexed me. This was, that I could not settle, turn and twist as I might, how soon I ought to go again upon a visit to Glen Doone. For I liked not at all the falseness of it, albeit against murderers, and the creeping out of sight, and hiding, and feeling as a spy might. And even more than this, I feared how Lorna might regard it; whether I might seem to her a prone and blunt intruder, a country youth not skilled in manners as among the quality, even when they rob us. For I was not sure myself but that it might be very bad manners to go again too early without an invitation; and my hands and face were chapped so badly by the bitter wind, that Lorna might count them unsightly things, and wish to see no more of them. However, I could not bring myself to consult any one upon this point, at least in our own neighbourhood, nor even to speak of it near home. But the east wind holding through the month, my hands and face growing worse and worse, and it having occurred to me by this time that possibly Lorna might have chaps if she came abroad at all, and so might like to talk about them, and show her little hands to me, I resolved to take another opinion, so far as might be upon this matter, without disclosing the circumstances. Now the wisest person in all our parts was reckoned to be a certain wise woman, well known all over Exmoor by the name of Mother Melldrum. Her real name was Maple Durham, as I learned long afterwards, and she came of an ancient family, but neither of Devon nor Somerset. Nevertheless, she was quite at home with our proper modes of divination, and knowing that we liked them best, as each man does his own religion, she would always practise them for the people of the country. And all the while she would let us know that she kept a higher and nobler mode for those who looked down upon this one, not having been bred and born to it. Mother Melldrum had 2 houses, or rather she had none at all, but 2 homes wherein to find her, according to the time of year. In summer she lived in a pleasant cave, facing the cool side of the hill, far inland near Hawkridge, and close above Tar Steps, a wonderful crossing of Barle River, made, as everybody knows, by Satan for a wager. But throughout the winter she found sea air agreeable, and a place where things could be had on credit, and more occasion of talking. Not but what she could have credit, for every one was afraid of her, in the neighbourhood of Tar Steps, only there was no one handy owning things worth taking. Therefore at the fall of the leaf, when the woods grew damp and irksome, the wise woman always set her face to the warmer cliffs of the channel, where shelter was, and dry fern bedding, and folk to be seen in the distance, from a bank upon which the sun shone. And there, as I knew from our John Fry, who had been to her about rheumatism, and sheep possessed with an evil spirit, and warts on the hand of his son young John, any one who chose might find her, towards the close of a winter day, gathering sticks and brown fern for fuel, and talking to herself the while, in a hollow stretch behind the cliffs, which foreigners, who come and go without seeing much of Exmoor, have called the Valley of Rocks. This valley, or Goyal as we term it, being small for a valley, lies to the west of Linton, about a mile from the town perhaps, and away towards Ley Manor. Our home folk always call it the Danes, or the Denes, which is no more, they tell me, than a hollow place, even as the word den is. However, let that pass, for I know very little about it; but the place itself is a pretty one, though nothing to frighten anybody, unless he hath lived in a gallipot. It is a green, rough-sided hollow, bending at the middle, touched with stone at either crest, and dotted here and there with slabs in and out the brambles. On the right hand is an upward crag, called by some the Castle, easy enough to scale, and giving great view of the channel. Facing this, from the inland side and the elbow of the valley, a queer old pile of rock arises, bold behind one another, and quite enough to affright a man, if it only were 10 times larger. This is called the Devil's Cheese Ring, or the Devil's Cheese Knife, which mean the same thing, as our fathers were used to eat their cheese from a scoop; and perhaps in old time the utmost rock, which has fallen away since I knew it, was like to such an implement, if Satan eat cheese untoasted. But all the middle of this valley was a place to rest in, to sit and think that troubles were not, if we would not make them. To know the sea outside the hills, but never to behold it, only by the sound of waves to pity sailors labouring. Then to watch the sheltered sun coming warmly round the turn, like a guest expected, full of gentle glow and gladness, casting shadow far away, as a thing to hug itself, and awakening life from dew, and hope from every spreading bud, and then to fall asleep and dream that the fern was all asparagus. Alas, I was too young in those days much to care for creature comforts, or to let pure palate have things that would improve it. Anything went down with me, as it does with most of us. Too late we know the good from bad. The knowledge is no pleasure then, being memory's medicine, rather than the wine of hope. Now Mother Meldrum kept her winter in this vale of rocks, sheltering from the wind and rain within the Devil's Cheese ring, which added greatly to her fame, because all else, for miles around, were afraid to go near it after dark, or even on a gloomy day. Under eaves of lichened rock she had a winding passage, which none that I ever knew of durst enter but herself, and to this place I went to seek her, in spite of all misgivings, upon a Sunday in Lenten season, when the sheep were folded. Our parson, as if he had known my intent, had preached a beautiful sermon about the Witch of Endor, and the perils of them that meddle wantonly with the unseen powers, and therein he referred especially to the strange noise in the neighbourhood, and upbraided us for want of faith, and many other backslidings. We listened to him very earnestly, for we like to hear from our betters about things that are beyond us, and to be roused up now and then, like sheep with a good dog after them, who can pull some wool without biting. Nevertheless, we could not see how our want of faith could have made that noise, especially at night time; notwithstanding which we believed it, and hoped to do a little better. And so we all came home from church, and most of the people dined with us, as they always do on Sundays, because of the distance to go home, with only words inside them. The parson, who always sat next to mother, was afraid that he might have vexed us, and would not have the best piece of meat according to his custom. But soon we put him at his ease, and showed him we were proud of him, and then he made no more to do, but accepted the best of the sirloin. End of chapter 17. Read by Landy in Sydney, Australia, September 2008.